Hi guys, welcome back to Chaos Head NoAH. So, um, yep, this is the episode I'm gonna knock out the rest of the delusions. If you're not a fan of delusions, you can probably go ahead and skip this episode, but maybe there's some good character moments buried among this. Before I do that, though, let me check to see if I got a new diagnosis. Oh, right. Diagnostic results. Yeah, so apparently, for the amount of boxes you check off on the diagnosis sheet, you can get different results. And I assume Nanami's D sword is also on here now. You are slightly delusional. Perhaps not everything in your life is going favorably, but you have one or more things that you can devote yourself to, and you work hard at them every day. For this reason, you probably don't have much time for things like delusions. If you keep trying your hardest, you should be able to live a fulfilling life. But I urge you to be careful. If you by some chance fail or lose one of the things you've devoted yourself to, you may suddenly find yourself tempted to abandon everything and escape into delusions. A word from Nanami. If you're gonna turn out like my big bro, make sure you're someone other people can rely on when things get tough. Even better if you stay in tune with the latest fashion trends. Oh, and it'd make me really happy if you made sure to take care of your family too. A word from Senna. Whatever you're aiming to do, push as hard as you can possibly push as hard as you possibly can to achieve it. But if you need a break, take one. It's not smart to work too hard. You'll just end up burning yourself out. I recommend adding a good walk to your daily routine. And by pure coincidence, I assume this is Nanami's. Yeah. The memory of her bangle, the symbol of her love for her brother. Hopefully a platonic love, and not whatever was going on with Hand Nanami. Man, I can't believe that Takumi romanced a right hand, and one that wasn't his. It taken shape as a blade, that is Nanami's D sword, influenced by her strong desire to not let anyone else have it. Even the hilt itself is made of blades. This makes it impossible for even other gigolomaniacs to hold or wield the sword. I thought that was just a thing they couldn't do in general. Yep, Aconitum, or however you pronounce that. Anyway, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to basically do 3 playthroughs all at once. I'm going to do one where I pick every neutral option, then every positive option, and then every negative option. That should be more efficient and should guarantee I see everything. So, yep, this is the first. If you want context for what's currently going on here, yeah, he's just going on about the gays or whatever. Chapter 3, Shogun. Maybe this is when Rimi appears? There was no response. But why would there be? Hell, I'd be much more terrified if there had been.
Huh?
I heard something. Upon hearing it, I immediately whipped around. I'd lost today's no turning around game. There was no one else in the room. Was it just a hallucination? Please be a hallucination. From the bottom of my heart, that was all I hoped for. It came again. It was the sound again. I couldn't weasel my way out of this. It was the sound of someone knocking on my door from the outside. In other words, someone was here. Practically no human beings ever came to visit me. Even newspaper salesmen wouldn't bother getting up on the roof. All I could think of was a delivery guy. No, I wasn't supposed to be getting any packages today. Nanami? No, Nanami would be so much more obnoxious. She'd be banging on the door, screaming, "Big bro, open up!" making my eardrums bleed. Yua? Chances of that were high. She'd been to my base once before. Had the demon girl ordered her to come and kill me? If that were true, why would she bother knocking? The knocking sound continued. I was completely frozen in place trying to figure out what to do, but I couldn't come up with a single good idea that quickly. I started freaking out more and more. Also, Takumi, why do some burglars knock? The thing is that sometimes they can't get in, and they bank on someone being present so that they can force their way in. Wait, I could just pretend like I wasn't home. Or was that being too cautious? No, there was no such thing right now. Shibuya had gotten incredibly dangerous recently, after all. If it was Yua, there was absolutely no way I could let her in. If I did, it'd be pretty much asking to get killed. On a related note, was my door locked? I stared in the direction of the door, but thanks to the darkness, I couldn't see very well. I slowly got up and tiptoed toward the door, being careful not to make a sound. I'm sure nobody understood that reference. When I reached the center of the room, I finally knew for sure. The door wasn't locked. Chills assaulted my entire body. My heartbeat increased rapidly, and my anxiety shot up along with it. I'd forgotten to lock my goddamn door. If someone just waltzed right on in now and stabbed me in the back, I'd have no right to complain. I had to lock it, fast. If I made a sound, they'd immediately find out that I was just pretending to not be home. But that was far better than letting them get inside. I was about to bolt toward the door when I accidentally stepped on an empty box lunch that had fallen on the floor. I slipped to an almost comical degree and landed hard on my ass. The extreme pain made me moan in silent agony. And then, right before my eyes, the door slowly began to open. I didn't know who it was, but whoever had been knocking was now opening the door of their own accord. I tried to get up, but the pain kept my body from listening to me. All I could do was stare at with teary eyes as the door opened. The first thing I saw was a hand. The sleeve on it was clearly from a Suime Academy uniform. Next, I saw a hair. A little longer than Nanami's, but shorter than Yua's. I didn't know who it was. The hair stirred, and the last thing I saw was a face suddenly peeking into the room.
Konnichiwa.
That was when I finally realized who it was. Rimi jump scare. I guess I never saw this version before. A person I never would have expected. The worst possible plot twist. Feelings of intense despair threatened to steal every bit of hope away from me. The demon girl. I thought it'd be Yua. I never would have thought the demon girl herself would come marching in. Our eyes met, and right as they did, the demon girl smiled with glee. Her smile sent chills down my spine.
もうどうしてすぐ返事してくれないの?
Oh fuck, oh fuck, oh fuck. Her hand hidden by the door had to be gripping one of those cross-shaped stakes. It had to be. She'd finally come to kill me. She was gonna kill me as she laughed and laughed in pure ecstasy. It had to be because of the detectives I talked to. She'd seen me do it with her clairvoyance. Don't kill me! I tried to scream, but I was too terrified to make a sound.
コロッケ?
Tilting her neck to the side, the demon girl,
ていいかな。っていうか入っちゃいます。
The demon girl began encroaching further upon my territory. She even politely took off her shoes.
お邪魔しちゃった。あ、散らかってても私平気だから気にしないでね。
Door closed. My escape route had been cut off. However, despite what I thought earlier, the demon girl was only carrying a bag. I didn't see anything resembling a deadly weapon. Wait, that just meant it was inside her bag. It had to be. I had to be extremely careful. The second I let my guard down, she'd swoop in and end me. Maybe she already had with that curse she'd placed on me a minute ago. In a few days, my entire body would suddenly start spewing blood everywhere, and I'd die right then and there.
頼むよ。殺さないで。
Okay, this seems a little funnier at least. I got down on my hands and knees,
警察？
それに話してもちっとも信じてもらえてなかったし。
疑心。
It's gonna force me to go through this again, I guess.
独り言はやめるべし。殺さないでとか警察がどうとか私には何のことかさっぱりだよ。ほら立てる？立とう。
だってお前が殺してるとこ。
あのさ、タク、まさか殺人犯呼ばわりされるなんてね。
ニュージェネの殺すんでしょ。それともいや
ユア将軍？
助けて。お願いだ。もう二度とだ。
もしもーし。タク、ちょっと落ち着こう。当然でしょ、あなたの名前を知ってるのは。タクって前から思ってたことだけど、タクの名前を知らないわけないよ。友達の名前くらい覚えるよ。それともタク、私のこと面と向かってそういうこと言われると。そういえば近いうちに転校生が来るらしいよ。スカチン先生が言ってた。その顔は
誰だ。
うわ、タクこそクラスメートの顔を覚えてないんだ。でもまあしょうがないか。だからってちなみにはいはい、そうなのね。じゃあ私は崎畑凛美。
Oh. Interesting. So she actually says her name this time instead of it just popping into his head. Huh. Well, I see why the guide gave me the other one, because it adds more supernatural elements to it with Takumi actually recalling her name. Yep.
リアクションなしかい。崎畑凛美、思い出した？
I hadn't even heard the name before. Besides, other than Yua, I'd never met a 3D girl who talked to me like we were this close in my life. Yua was the demon girl's underling. Wait, that was it. What the girl calling herself Sakihata was doing right now was exactly the same as what Yua had done. This temptress knew I wasn't used to interacting with 3D girls, So she was attempting to lead me into a trap by behaving all friendly and trying to seduce me. It was the exact same strategy. And the thing is, while I barely remembered my classmates' faces at all, and I didn't plan to either. Yep, okay.
タク
Okay. Mimi hurried over to me in a half sprint.
わざわざ待っててくれたんだ。ありがとう。
Oh, I guess she doesn't play the game this time.
そんなに私と一緒に帰りたかった？
She peered into my face with a broad grin. I quickly turned away. Thanks to the setting sun, she shouldn't have noticed my face turning red. Rather than wanting to head home together, it was more like I was too scared to do it alone. I even felt paranoid just waiting alone at the gate. What if Yua was hiding in the shadows? Rimi should have known that, and yet she was deliberately probing me in a teasing manner.
ああ、嘘でもいいからそうだって言ってほしかったな。ねえ、私さ。
Mimi had an unexpectedly distant look in her face. They shone faintly with the afterglow of the sunset.
タクの力になれて結構嬉しいよ。
ありがとう。
I thanked her out of reflex. I truly was thankful, though. Rimi had become completely irreplaceable to me. Until I found a D sword, she was all I had to rely on.
どういたしまして。
With a joyous smile, Rimi guided me away.
さあ、帰ろう。あ、
Okay, something new. The second I opened the door, Nanami shivered a little, then fell silent.
お兄。
Even though she'd been shouting at the top of her lungs just a few moments ago, she was acting strangely meek now. Still don't know what the deal with this Nanami is. Not like the Nanami ending helped any. I was confused. I'd barely ever seen Nanami act like this. So a thought crossed my mind. Was this Nanami real?
いるなら早く出てよ。
I mean, I suppose it's possible that it's just a delusion that Takumi created to cope like he did with
入っていい？
hand Nanami, but still. I didn't answer. Ignoring her question, I hid back into my room and sat down on the sofa. I once again took hold of my seroton figure and gripped her tight. So tight, in fact, that my hand hurts. Nanami followed after me, entering the room in silence. When she came inside, as if she didn't know what to do at that point, she moved aside the magazines scattered across the floor and squatted down. She didn't speak, even though normally she'd have started scolding me the second she got the chance. She looked at a fixed point on the ground as she hugged her knees close. She had a depressed look on her face. A bandage was barely visible beneath the sleeve on her right wrist. I was about to say, if you see it like that, I'll see your panties, but stop myself, because that is the most annoying line in every anime ever. This Nanami had to be a delusion. I was one too, after all. Everything in this world was made up of delusions. Delusions developed only within my mind. Both me and this delusion I was looking at were fake. So if I saw her panties, or even if she just walked around town buck naked, it made no difference to me whatsoever. Foreshadowing. Or technically hindshadowing. Because that happens a few days before this, technically. Averting my gaze from Nanami, I looked up at the ceiling with no rusty spots.
Ne, お兄、何か喋ってよ。どうして包帯のこととか。何か言って。
Wait. I'm a delusion, so I'm not related to you by blood. Okay, I'll take this as a word of God moment and just say that they're genetically different. Still weird.
願いだから。ほら、見てよ。青技、だいぶ消えて、バスケしてて。見ても、ナナってお兄に逆はしょっちゅうなのに。
ねえ、ナナミ、お前が本物でも僕を殺してくれないか。
Okay, time for the positives and the negatives afterwards. In other words, I get to suffer through the horny. Whoa. I had no... What the... I've seen the positive delusion before for this, but for some reason now it's got some new dialogue. Interesting. I had no idea why, but for some reason I felt like I knew her. While staring at the pale hand wrapped around my arm, I tried to envision what she looked like. In my delusions, she has a ribbon in her hair. Oh, is this how I get the Remy ending? Well, I'm not trying to get the Remy ending, so no. I'm just gonna answer literally every question incorrect.
.いや、その理屈はおかしい。
私、あなたのことが好きなんです。
Well, here's the first new delusion.
ずっと西条くんのこと見てました。
But you were stalking me.
もう見てるだけじゃ嫌なんです。
Yua's face turned bright red, and after her sudden confession, she abruptly started undressing. Of course. I was so bewildered I could hardly take myself to even peek at her, but when I did, I noticed she wasn't just taking off her top, but also her skirt. Her underwear flickered in and out of sight from beneath the hem of her blouse. It was black. Being so bold, despite being clearly embarrassed. Sure, it was a huge turn-on for me, but things were happening so suddenly, my mind could hardly keep up. It took all my strength just to swallow the saliva that had built up in my mouth. Next, Yua started fiddling with the buttons on her blouse. She was undoing them one by one from top to bottom. Then, almost as if trying to tease me, she slowly, ever so softly, dropped her blouse to the floor, and for some reason underneath it, she was wearing a competition swimsuit. It was a high-leg swimsuit and it was skin-tight. The way it was pressed on her body, a little bit of her thigh spilled out over the edges, so those dark-colored panties had caught glimpses of her legs were actually a swimsuit. And how did a girl this timid have boobs this huge? And another thing, she didn't take her knee-high socks off. GJ, that's the right choice. But...
私のこと好きにしてください。めちゃくちゃにしていいですから。
な
I was speechless. It was pretty strange for a 3D girl to say all this stuff to a guy she'd just met. No sane girl would do that. Sure, it was sexy, but it wasn't even remotely moe. And also, if a girl is this easy with you, you ain't the first guy. Just know that. A sense of reason threatened to completely shatter right then and there, and I struggled desperately to keep it contained.
だが断る
That camisole with its cross-shaped design was downright criminal. I couldn't help but think of it. It didn't look like she was wearing a bra underneath. Maybe she really wasn't wearing a bra. That would be very interesting, I think. What kind of underwear did Hess usually wear, I wondered. Probably the sexy kind, like black or red. But personally, I want them to be nice and clean white. Was Hess wearing only white lingerie?
え
Hess was standing right behind me. Hess was standing on the stairs right in front of me. Two of the same person in the same place. Not only that, but one of them was incredibly sexy, wearing only her underwear. Completely and utterly flustered, I relentlessly snapped back and forth between the two faces over and over, comparing them. I had run into Nanami's smelly, piss-stained underwear countless times, so you'd think this would be no big deal. But for whatever reason, I couldn't get myself to follow that line of logic. This was standing in the middle of her only underwear. I feel like it was a...
ごめん
Okay, I could feel Senna's breath on my cheeks. Just the thought of her only needing to move a bit closer to rip my throat out with her teeth genuinely terrified me. Staring at me point blank range, Senna. I felt something soft pressed against my lips. I had no idea what was going on. All I knew was that I couldn't breathe and I was getting really dizzy. I tried to push myself away from her, but Senna was still grabbing me by the chest, so I couldn't move. So, in the negative delusion, Takumi rapes Senna, and in the positive delusion, Senna rapes Takumi. Really grounds for a healthy relationship here. Really. Either that or it just speaks to how weird Takumi is. Something began wriggling lustfully against my lips, and then it penetrated my mouth. It twisted around my tongue, slid across my gums, and violated me orally. Yeah, I don't need Remember 11 levels of description of a kiss. Hopefully she doesn't suck out your internal organs this time and to turn you into a 2D character. I didn't know what was going on. All I knew was for some reason it felt really good, but I still was having trouble breathing. I was about to pass out. But just before I would have, the wriggling object left my mouth. Senna's lips had glistened with saliva. She had been staring at me with murderous eyes only a few moments ago, but now her eyes looked utterly enchanted. Wait, had she just kissed me?
お前こそ勇者だ。お前の力を私に貸せ。私と一緒に戦え。拒否するのは許さない。
And growling off that sandy in an angry voice, Senna brought her face to mine once again. She pressed her lips madly against mine and violated my mouth. Her hot breaths and sweet saliva trickled past my lips.
私は勇者に純潔を捧げるために生まれてきた巫女だ。
A state of pure ecstasy, she rattled off line after line that made me think, what a rogue is
お前がい
this?
ないとこの戦いには勝てない。さあ、血の契約を交わそう。
Senna's teeth sank deeply into my lip. Pain shot through me, and the taste of blood spread inside my mouth. Well, this has turned into Ever 17.
お前が欲しい。
Somehow even more like Ever 17 than the Remember 11 reference I just made. Did she have any idea how to ask someone anything? Even if she did, everything she'd said was completely absurd. But the sensation of basically getting reverse raped. Well, to be blunt, I was hard as a rock. I could get into this kind of roleplay.
おい、無視するな。
I shot back to my senses, snapped back to reality. Senna was still grabbing me by the chest, and she still had me pinned to the playground equipment. What the? I've already done this. Huh. Interesting. Shogun. It was most likely him who had brought them here. They were all under his mind control. All of them were expecting me to jump off from here and die. An overwhelming surge of negative emotions struck me. Tell me, was there anyone on my side? Suddenly, among the clamor, I heard a voice calling my name. A voice all too familiar. A voice I knew. A voice that belonged to the one and only person on my side. It wasn't an illusion. It wasn't an auditory hallucination either. It was Rimi. Rimi was calling me from somewhere. Where was she? I searched desperately for her. But there were too many people. It was impossible to identify a single person among all of them, especially from this height. Struck by despair, I hung my head in regret. Inevitably, as a consequence of this, I ended up looking directly below me. And there, I saw the figure of a girl looking up at me, waving both hands.
リミ、
There she was! She'd come to save me! Happy as could be, and realizing that I'd been saved, I nodded over and over again. My vision was blurred by tears of joy. I quickly wiped them away. I didn't want to lose sight of Rimi for even a single second. However, I looked again toward the spot Rimi was waving from, and saw that something was wrong. For some reason, the crowd around Rimi started surrounding her. With Rimi in its center, a clear circle of dark heads began to form. They moved in closer and closer to her. And eventually, who knows how many Dokuns reached toward Rimi and began to jostle her. Hating what was being done to her, she tried to break free from the man-made enclosure, Due to the sheer number of people surrounding her, she couldn't even take one step. It was as if she was standing right in the middle of the morning train. A claustrophobic nightmare packed to the brim with people heading to work.
よせリミに手を出すなよ
I could faintly hear the sound of her screams. The number of people surrounding Rimi was gradually increasing, as was the intensity of their behavior. As they pushed her around, they pulled at her clothes, and eventually her dress.
やめろよそんなエロゲみたいなことやめてリミ逃げてそこから逃げろそれで早く僕を助けに来て
Their prayers were left unanswered. The crowd rushing toward Rimi was still getting bigger and bigger, and her lone resistance wasn't enough to hold them back. Countless men tore off her clothes, pulled her hair, and dragged her out onto the road. She disappeared into the sea of people, and I lost sight of her. Like hyenas devouring a dead animal flesh, more and more Dokyans rushed in for a taste, their bodies stirring around where Rimi had just disappeared. Oh god, they were going to rape her. They were going to rape Rimi. Dokyans who had been brought here, who were being mind-controlled by Shogun, were going to ruin her, defile her with their filthy hands. And after that, after they were done raping her, she would meet a cruel, merciless end at their hands. Tears started to flow. I bit my lip hard. I wasn't crying simply out of sorrow and anger over what was happening to Rimi. I was crying because of the sheer terror I felt once I realized every single person there was my enemy. There was nowhere to run anymore. I was trapped. Fuck off. I assume that was Sua's fault, but still, fuck off. For example, wrapping my arms around one of the girls in my class, whispering dirty things with Chaperone and Neroge in their ear. If I could actually do that, I'd go straight to class in the morning to get in some public humiliation roleplay. While only half paying attention, I looked around the classroom. Who would be a good target? A cute girl that wouldn't put up much of a fight to her. The Dokyan bitches were already out of the question, even though they were all mere high school students. They all wore way too much makeup, rendering them not even remotely attractive. Oh, I know, maybe the transfer student would be a good choice. From a glance, she looked to be quite docile, and her entire body gave off the aura of a loli who was typically the number one target of bullying. Additionally, she also had the clumsy girl attribute, which is super moe. Really, she was already virtually a 2D character. Yes, perhaps she really would be a good choice. I stood up in a relaxed manner. The aura surrounding me had changed. Even the people who had been ridiculing and provoking me were stalled by my sudden movement. In the end, you guys are all talk. I'm different. I'm the type of man who acts, and now it's time to prove it to you. Without saying a single word, I made my way over to the transfer student's desk. She was sitting hunched over in her seat, face down. Noticing me approach, she looked up at me quizzically. For some reason, she already looked like she was about to cry. I then quickly grabbed both her slender arms. I then began to pull her toward me. She tried to resist me with her feeble strength. She alternated between looking at me and looking at her surroundings. Her confusion ran all over her face. It was clear she had no idea what to do. I brought her in close and wrapped my arms around her quite forcefully.
レマンコって言えクリとキリギリスって言え チンスコって言え。
チンスコ。
え？
Where in that tiny body was she hiding that kind of strength? From the looks of it, that thing had to weigh at least 5 kilograms. CoZ, having literally read the question in my head, turned to me and smiled bashfully.
コズピーはタクミちゃんを守るためだけに作られたアンドロイドなのら。
はい。
Had she just said android? What kind of anime plotline was that? Ignoring my disbelief, CoZ clenched her hand into an adorable
タ
fist.
クミちゃん、もう安心なの。タクミちゃんを狙う悪いやつはコズピーがドッカーンってするのら。ちなみにコズピーはメイド機能もあるの。だからこれからタクミちゃんと一緒に住んで身の回りのお世話もしたいのら。
I see. Would be convenient. I was willing to accept that CoZ was an android on top of everything else. That is, if she fulfilled one non-negotiable condition.
エッチなことをできる機能はありますか？
For the record, I'm not a prude. I'm just sick of this shit. For whatever reason, I said all that very formally. I said, Jesus Christ, what did I just ask her? While I waffled on about whether or not to apologize to her, CoZ's cheeks turned bright red and her eyes shot downward.
エッチなこともできるの。夜のご奉仕頑張るの。
Holy fuck! Made with combat abilities and the ability to perform nightly services? What kind of eroge is this? She came enhanced with perhaps too many optional features, lol. Japanese technology is the best in the world! Okay, that was better than the other normally horny ones, because it was at least actually funny. And not rapey. Mentally preparing myself because there are 2 girls here. Senna pursed her lips, and then she nervously accepted the popsicle.
ありがとう。
I was lost for words, astonished. I would have never imagined that I'd ever get to hear Senna thank me. Likely unaware of my surprise, Senna glanced at me.
お前優しいな。
You gave me a popsicle stick, so now I want your popsicle stick. If you know what I mean. Muttered those few words quietly, then immediately looked away. Was it just me, or had she been blushing a little bit just now? Well, she'd given me an honest thank you, which was enough to make me reevaluate her a little bit. I'd originally just thought that she was scary and nothing else, but she actually had a cute side to her.
セナさんは今ので。
Talk to me, why is your version of Senna so boring compared to the actual Senna? CoZ spun around in place, peered happily at Senna's face, and then at mine.
タクミちゃんのこと好きになっちゃったのら。
小ゼ、何をバカな。
顔がプッポーってなってるの。
うるさい。
Do you have any idea what she just said? The mother of all tsunderes, Blue-Eyed June's signature catchphrase. I started to grin out of sheer glee, and Senna's finger shot in front of my face. What's up with all your weird tsundere interpretations of her?
お前もニヤニヤしてるんじゃない。
I'd never seen Senna act so adorably agitated before. I was starting to feel a bit mischievous, so I decided to test her.
ガルガリ君は好きですか？
悪いか。
どの辺が？
美味しいだろ。
それだけ。
あと、可愛い。
While she was still sullen, Senna then said something that was incomprehensible to me.
かわいいかわいい。
Had she just gendered a popsicle? And also, how could popsicles be cute? Or even uncute?
アイスがじゃないからな。ガルガリ君が可愛いんだ。
Oh, she was talking about the mascot. Cute?
あのイガグリ頭が最高だ。抱きしめて頬ずりしたくなる。
The expression on Senna's face as she spoke reminded me of a maiden in love. Well, different strokes for different folks, I guess. He wanted to go right past me, but just before he did, he put his hand on my shoulder.
外にタグ押し倒しちまう。
え？
Well, that was slightly different, but basically conveying the same information, so I don't really care that I skipped it. Flashing me a mischievous smile, he left the room. And of course, that meant that the only ones left in the room were me and Ayase. Silence. Despite having been going on and on about all that schizo shit mere seconds ago, Ayase now hung her head in complete silence. Her hand skipped the hem of her shirt as she rolled it back up toward her, then straightened it back out again, then toward her, then back again. I guess I had to say something, but I had literally no idea what the hell she'd been talking about. Oh, here's an idea. Since I'd come to visit her in the hospital, I could give her a few words of sympathy about her condition and call it good. But considering she'd been put in the psych ward, I couldn't exactly just ask about her condition. What was I supposed to do? If I knew it was gonna be like this, I would have just left her with Misumi-kun.
匠。
Hearing my name made me jump. Ayase raised her head, then held out both hands to me.
来て。こっちに来て。
Unsure of what she would do if I refused, I took a very confused step toward the
も
bed.
っと。
Urged on, I took another step. Our hands touched, then taking hold of them, she swiftly pulled me in. She lowered her head once more. She stared intently at my hand.
君は私を救ってくれた命の恩人よ。
That wasn't true at all. I just saved her by chance, nothing more. Not to mention, I didn't even know whether I'd actually created that flower bed in the first place.
ありがとう。
Ayase's voice was shaky. Was she crying? I felt a warm sensation on my fingertips. I looked down to see what it was. For some reason I couldn't comprehend. My index finger was inside Ayase's mouth.
ちょっ
Get it, guys? Because it's like a penis. It's like a penis. It's like she's sucking on a penis. Yeah. Yeah, just... Yeah, you guys into this? I felt something soft and warm touch my fingertips, called a tongue, a ragged golden coiled around my finger and slipped in one of the gaps between nail and flesh. How exactly had we gotten to this point? I was more confused than ever, but I didn't have it in me to resist. It just felt way too good. I was now entirely at her mercy. All she was doing was licking my fingers, so why was it so...
ダメ
The pleasure suddenly switched to sharp pain. Ayase had bitten my finger. Hard.
言ってただやめちょ
It felt like she was biting right through to the bone. That was how painful it felt. I frantically tore my hand away and eventually managed to free it from Ayase's mouth. Her bewitching laughter filling me with fear. I quickly went to check the bite wound on my finger. It shone with Ayase's thick, slimy saliva. Blood dribbled from the tooth marks, but the blood wasn't red. It was a sinister black.
その血の色が黒騎士の証よ。
Okay, the weird horny shit was worth it for this. By having a delusion like that, I was somehow able to endure Ayase's insane psychobabble. I hadn't paid attention to a single word, but Ayase didn't seem to notice. She simply continued to talk about how Gladiol did this and Wicked Hearts did that, while having a very serious expression glued to her face.
わかった。ねえ、私のことをご家族に紹介してくれる？
Remy peered at my face with a somewhat mischievous look.
タクのお家にお邪魔することになれば顔を合わせることになるでしょ。タクはどうするつもりなのかなって思って。ねえ、どう？
Wasn't that an event that only came after you started dating? Remy and I weren't a couple. At least for now, anyway. Hang on, what had I just said? For now? Was I seriously thinking we had a chance at ending up together? Yes, Remy was really nice to me, but at the end of the day, I was an otaku freak. There's no getting away from that. No chance in hell was it ever happening. No point in it even hoping for it to. Quit being such a conceited loser, Takumi.
タク、教えてってば。
その
How was I supposed to answer that? Telling Remy that I'd introduced her wouldn't be expecting way too much. Saying I wouldn't introduce her would probably hurt her.
ああ、もう、ちれったいな。こうなったら、はっきり言わせてもらっちゃおうかな。紹介して。
はい
Caught off guard by her, I nodded in spite of myself, but Remy seemed perfectly satisfied with my answer.
計算通り。
A familiar voice reached my ears. Surprised, I turned to see where the voice had come from, only to find Nanami hiding in the shadow of the container house, smiling.
ナナミ
Why was Nanami here? And that happy smile on her face was worlds away from what she'd been like over the phone. Almost like she was a completely different person. Bewildered, my mind went completely blank. And yet, despite my confusion, Nanami trotted over to me with a spring in her step.
イエーイ。
Oh, this was one of the CGs from Ending B. gave Remy a high five. Huh? But why? She was acting almost like they knew each other. I'd never heard anything about the two of them being friends.
お兄、びっくりした？
The two best girls together. For now, anyways.
実は全部ナナとリミさんの作戦だったんだよ。
作戦？
そう名付けてお兄とリミさんの仲を既成事実にしちゃおう作戦。お兄があんまりにも奥手で全然リミさんの気持ちに気づこうとしないからナナが協力したの。
You're kidding.
じゃあお前手首の包帯とかさっきの電話とかは？
The ultimate gaslighting, gatekeeping, girl bossing plan of all time.
全部作戦のうち。お兄ったら本気でナナの心配してるからちょっと笑いそうになっちゃった。
Nanami laughed without even a hint of guilt. My anger flared. This fucking bitch!
ごめんねタク、騙すようなことしちゃって。リミさんは謝らなくてもいいの。お兄が超鈍感なのが悪いんだから。
I fell to my knees, crestfallen. I was filled with anger and frustration. Anger at being deceived. Anger at being treated like an idiot for actually worrying about Nanami. I couldn't stand it. I couldn't stand how Nanami had decided to do things. But rising above all that anger came a certain feeling. One about all my worries being unfounded. One about Nanami being safe. Not only safe, but more lively than ever. My feelings of ease and relief toward those things were far stronger than any anger I could have had, and the suffocating threads of tension coiled around my body were cut away in an instant. Aw,
タク
if only.
大丈夫？お兄落ち込んでないで。ほら立って。これからお父さんとお母さんにリミさんを紹介しに行かなくちゃいけないんだから。3人で一緒に帰ろう。
I couldn't believe how much of a brat my sister was, making a fool out of me, her own brother, time and time again. Although sulking somewhat, I reluctantly rose to my feet. Mimi and Nanami both smiled joyfully and grabbed one of my hands each. Pulled along by them, I set off. I had a hunch that things would get pretty fun from now on. Like a peaceful, bright future was ahead of me.
消えなくたってこれまでタッキーは存在感ゼロだったっしょ。
Well, I got all the positives. I am a... You guys can't mess with my positive vibes! Yeah! I felt a sudden pain deep in my chest. To think even Saraton would say such horrible things to me.
ひどいことも何も本当のことだよ。消えたいとか言ってるくせに図星疲れたぐらいでへこむんだ。
Of course, the lady that would be waiting for me at the end of this little path here would be you, Saraton. Whatever, I don't care, I don't like you, go away. I had to watch 3 rapey delusions, and some that were actually funny. So it's been a pretty mixed bag, this positive route. Not looking forward to negative, because it could get worse. I hope, though, I get some good crap out of it, but we'll see. Anyways, I'll stop ranting.
タッキーはさ、この1ヶ月ぐらい調子に乗ってたよね。周りの人たち、特に女子だよね。可愛い子たちとリア充みたく話すようになっちゃって。それまではさ、友達なんて一人もいなくて引きこもってたの。でも逆に考えればまたその頃みたいな生活に戻るってだけなんさ。
Go back.
そう戻る。誰とも会っちゃダメ、誰も信じちゃダメ。
Socalizen. I think that's a typo.
本物なのか偽物なのかとかどうでもいい。そんなの誰にも証明できないし。タッキーは私だけ見てればいいさ。前はそれだけで十分幸せだったっしょ。そう感じなくなっちゃったのはタッキーに近づいてきたあの女子たちのせいだよ。あんなアバズレビッチどもとはさ、会わない方がいいって絶対。
そうか、そういうことか。
Once who got involved with me were at fault. It was their fault. Remy's and everyone else's, not mine. I'd become a shut-in again. Starting with Sataton, I'd live here surrounded by my waifus as a person with no shame. An anonymous existence. Sounds good to me. What about you, Sataton?
そういうこと。タッキーは私が幸せにしてあげる。
Sataton spoke cheerfully from within my grasp, and I was hit with a strong sense of disgust toward myself, who had made her do so. I'm such a fucking disgrace. I want to die even more than before. Wait, that was a lie! The achievement lied to me! I had this one left! Everyone must focus on... Or maybe this just doesn't count as a delusion. Maybe he has to actually be, like, have a delusion scene instead of just mildly changing the dialogue. Everyone was focused on me. I braced myself for it to happen again. Being verbally abused, laughed at, humiliated. My legs froze as I recalled the trauma from back then. And yet...
頑張れ。
応援してるね。頑張って西条くん。
華々しく散ってこい。
若いのに勇気があるわね。
お前のこと忘れないからな。最後まで見守っててやるぞ。男を見せてくれ。
The onlookers' reactions were different from last time. Rather than insults, everyone was hitting me with kind words of encouragement. I was so confused I had to blink a few times. Were they cheering me on?
そのための祭りだもん。みんなさ、タッキーを待っててくれたんだよ。
Before me, a pathway showed itself in the center of the crowd of people. They formed an arch with their arms, urging me to go through. It was just like an elementary school graduation. Past the many arms was the entrance to O-Front, and so I nervously started heading toward it. As I walked, words of comfort were thrown my way without end. Once I stepped inside O-Front, even the Tatsuya and Starbricks employees greeted me with applause. Courage gradually came to me. Courage to finally die. The rooftop of O-Front was just as dark as last time. I gulped. Reminded of what had transpired the last time I'd come here, I hesitated to move any farther for a moment. Even after gathering all that courage, I was being painfully aware of just how much of a pussy I truly was. No matter what happened, that would never change.
きっと戻ってくると信じてたよ。
Suddenly, a wheelchair creaked. And together with that noise, just like he had last time, Shogun showed himself. He was wearing the Darth Spider helmet today as well. But Shogun wasn't the only one here.
よくもう一度挑戦する気になったな。
たくみちゃん、すごいな。西条くんのおかげで 私も勇気をもらいました。
君はとても崇高だわ、匠。
Senna, Kozapi, Yua, and Ayase. All of them stood in a line, smiling at me.
一緒に飛ぶわ、私たち。あなたと。
だからね、怖くないよ。
On both sides of me, Kozapi and Ayase took one of my hands each. But it wasn't just us that held hands. Senna and Yua joined us too. All 5 of us stood hand in hand. Was this a recreation of the group dive? Recreation. The crowd down below, watching us with bated breath, clapped in unison. It was as if they were giving us their blessing, extolling us.
さようなら。君のことは忘れないよ。
Shogun waved us goodbye with his slender hand. Then, Kozapi and Ayase pulled me in. As if they were inviting me to frolic with them. As if they were inviting me to dance with them. All while they had the most gentle smiles on their faces. And so, without even feeling an ounce of fear, I, ever so smoothly, was able to dance away into the air. Such thoughts came to mind. How wonderful would it be if I could die such a happy death. And yet, in the end, it too had been a delusion. The path of people in front of me was real. The path that seemed to guide me forward. No one was making an arch with their arms. I mean, they're literally making an arch right there. Everyone looked at me, but their eyes were cold and sharp, staring daggers at me with what felt close to murderous intent. Everyone was out for blood. No one had been waiting for me. No one had given me their blessing. All the energy they'd had back when I humiliated myself atop O'Front was gone. The reality was, I probably wouldn't be able to die a happy death. But I'd already expected that even before all this. Even so, it didn't matter to me. As long as I died, it didn't matter. As long as someone killed me, it didn't matter. And so, as I laughed and laughed, I walked through the path between the people. Okay, and lastly, the negative delusions. Damn it. Who the hell did she think she was? Acting like such a goddamn princess. Sure, go ahead. Drink so much cola that you destroy your stomach and get sent to the emergency room. Then I could finally relax and spend some time alone. If only that would actually happen. Suddenly, Nanami let out a groan, and as soon as she did, she dropped the bottle of soda, splashing cola everywhere. It spilled all over the manga magazines and CDs I'd left down there.
お前
Don't mess up my room, I was about to say, but then I realized what was happening. Nanami's eyes had shot wide open, and her hands were pressed against her neck. She looked like she was in immense pain. Her mouth repeatedly flapped open and closed like a cart.
ななみ
She was vomiting blood. Red blood, actually. It was closer to dark brown. Splashed onto the floor, mixing with the spilled cola. Jesus Christ! Jeez! And then she lost her strength and collapsed. Her entire body convulsed as she writhed with agony. She clawed at her own neck with her fingernails. Her legs spasmed as she thrashed around on the floor. She didn't seem to care. What the fuck? Who the fuck cares? This might seem a little in poor taste, but when I saw the way she was acting, I thought that she looked just like a fish on a chopping board. I didn't know what to do, so I just covered my ears. That didn't help. I could still hear my sister's dying screams. Before long, her face was completely covered in drool, blood, and tears, and her body finally stopped trembling. I reluctantly tried calling out to her, but there was no response. She wasn't breathing. She was dead. Nanami was dead. It was like she'd been poisoned. The kind of thing you see all the time on TV. And that was when it hit me. I must have poisoned my own cola to kill Nanami. I was sure of it.
なぜ殺した？うえ。
Obviously, it had just been another one of my delusions, but it still made me sick to my stomach. The whole thing had definitely been a bit much. Yeah, and you constantly focusing on her panties being visible or whatever. Sure, Nanami could be really annoying, but that delusion had been way too graphic. I should have just left her at 1 HP, not fucking one-shotted her.
どうしたの？
After finishing her cola, Nanami shot me a confused look.
なんか顔色悪いけど。
Yeah, that was pretty disturbing. I just shook my head a little.
ごめん。
何が？
とにかくごめん。
Even if it was just a delusion, I treated you horribly. I'm sorry. Weird how that actually leads to a wholesome moment in character development for Takumi. That's only because I can't stand your bratty attitude. I hated it so much that I took it out on you inside my head. Would it kill you to understand that?
別に謝らなくてもいいのに。ミルクティーがないくらいでナナ怒んないよ。それになんだかんだ言ってコーラも好きだし。
Wait, did she just drink all my cola? I take back my apology. Nami doesn't deserve it at all. I hope she gets her stomach torn open and bleeds out. She opened the door to the examination room and was greeted by the doctor's smiling face.
今日はどうしました？
Ignoring the question, she examined her surroundings. The examination room was not particularly large. Atop the doctor's desk sat one blank medical chart, then another that was filled out in a language that was not Japanese. They called her a demon. Everyone did, even her own parents. Had she always been a demon? Or did everyone calling her one cause her to become one? After all this time, it did not matter to her either way. Regardless, she had slaughtered 8 people over the past month or so. Society called it madness, casting her actions into the realm of infamy. But from her perspective, they were nothing more than murder than numbers. She was a demon after all.
何か気になりますか？もし気になるものがあるなら言ってください。どかしますから。
He was very sensitive to the needs of his patients, something befitting of a psychiatrist. Whatever, I'm just gonna go with the normal narrator voice. Finding this truly heartwarming, she opened the bag she had brought along, and from that bag, she slowly took out a 24-centimeter long kitchen knife.
それとももっと広い部屋に変え
The doctor cut his offer short upon seeing the knife. His face stiffened. Sensing his terror, she gave a gentle smile. The doctor would be the ninth. He had not been her intended target, but she might as well make the most of the opportunity. Placing her bag on the ground, she approached the doctor with long, soundless strides. Then, managing her fierce momentum, she flew towards the doctor's chest and plunged the knife deep inside. The knife slipped past his ribcage, reaching his heart. That single thrust had spelled the end of the doctor's life. The doctor, now no more than an object to her, collapsed against her body. For a moment, she supported his weight so she could remove the knife. And then, when she was done, she knocked the object away with her elbow. Ironically, the woman that you just showed screaming is actually the one who literally murders him. The object was lying face up on the floor. Its white coat dyed in deep crimson. The nurse who had run over to investigate the commotion let out a scream. In one large step, she trampled over the doctor's corpse and slashed at the nurse with a knife. Fresh blood danced through the air. While it was no fatal wound, it likely etched a rough scar on the docile-looking nurse's face. With a scream, the nurse clutched at her face and crashed to the floor. Oceans of blood spilled out from the gaps between her fingers. Ignoring this, she continued toward the back of the examination room. The 10th would not be the nurse. It was a momentous occasion. The 10th, double digits. So it had to be the target she had originally come for. Everything around her was Chaos Head NoAH. The other patients and nurses had long since screamed and ran away. But she did not lend an ear to their cries. She simply searched for him, someone who was most definitely there. Her eyes stopped on a curtain. That curtain was partitioning off a section of the room that was between 2 to 3 square meters large. A section that likely contained a bed. There you are. Her heart trembled with jubilation. The sheer thought of killing him made her nether regions grow hot. She slowly closed the gap between her and the curtain. Then, instead of opening it normally, she slashed it open with a knife. And when she peeked through the newly opened gap, he was lying on the bed, just like she had expected him to be. I found you. Now that she had seen him, she could no longer contain herself any longer. She pushed her way through the curtain, and now she stood right by the bed. He was sleeping with a slightly pained expression on his face. She combed his fingers through his hair, stroking it ever so gently. He did not awaken. So this would actually be the first possible time you can see Takemi's face in the game. Huh. Not his eyes, but just his face. Gripping the knife with both hands, with an underhand grip, she raised her arms high above. Her target was simple. His heart. With a single thrust, just like the doctor before you. I'll put you to rest. Overwrought with feelings of pure rapture, with every ounce of strength she had, she swung down the knife. I sprang up, only to find myself on the bed like before. My heart was pounding like crazy. I checked my chest. There was no wound anywhere, nor was there any blood. I was unharmed. I examined my surroundings. The curtain was closed, and it definitely hadn't been slashed open with a kitchen knife. I carefully placed my hand on the curtain, and when I opened it, I saw the doctor and Hosky-san collapse on the floor, covered in blood. When that delusion appeared in my mind, I began to tremble all over again.
夢だよな。
But I couldn't work up the courage to open the curtain. What if there was a sea of blood right past it? What if the demon girl was standing there holding a knife? The terror of those thoughts completely incapacitated me. Then, right at that moment, the actual new gen killer came into the room. The curtain was open from the outside. I couldn't help but scream, and I tumbled off the bed.
大丈夫ですか？
Well, you care. I timidly looked up at her. Husky-san was looking down at me with wide eyes. Her white coat had no trace of blood, and her face didn't have any stab wounds either.
ごめんなさい。驚かせてしまって。起きているとは思わなかったので。
いえ。
God, I was pathetic. With my head still hanging down, I sluggishly rose to my feet. My heart was beating out of my chest, and it just wouldn't stop. But thank God it'd just been a dream. It was like watching a horror movie.
本当に大丈夫？
Husky-san peered at my face, her worry evident. I felt beyond embarrassed, so I couldn't look up at her. Just nodding was the best I could do.
少しうなされていたみたいでしたけど。
怖い夢を見て。
No thanks to you.
そう。
What time was it? How long had I slept for? I asked Hosky-san that very question. Surprisingly enough, I'd slept for a full 3 hours. I guess I'd been more exhausted than I realized.
でも、無遊病の症状は結局。
Diagnostic results. You are extremely delusional. You are likely subjected to nothing but painful things in your everyday life. I can understand why you would want to avert your eyes from such reality. However, you are not yet ready to fully surrender yourself to these delusions, but you still believe that you will someday be able to return to reality and live a fulfilling life. Do you ever find it difficult to distinguish between delusions and reality? This is not a good position to be in, as it's dangerous for your delusions to affect reality. The time for you to make a decision is drawing near. Will you gather your resolve and devote yourself to your delusions? Or will you strive for the faint wisp of hope that you may return to reality? A word from Remy. From this point forward, I don't want you to have any more delusions. I know all too well that reality is full of pain. That's exactly what makes all the good, happy moments so irreplaceable. So please, come back. Come back to reality, okay? Z's, how'd it go fully delusional? Well, first, try not to talk to anybody at all. And then, that's it. If you do that, then you'll have no choice but to have a whole bunch of bunches of delusions. I tried my best. I really tried my best.
そこの君。
はい。
When she called to me, I snapped to attention and replied. The otherworldly aura radiating off her entire body had me viewing her as someone older than myself. But then again, I knew for a fact that she and I were in the same year of school. Best signaled toward Misumi-kun, who had been following her around with a jerk of the chin.
付き合わない方がいいわよ。こんな人と。
おいおい、こんな人呼ばわりはひどくね？っていうか、こんな人ってどんな人だよ。
鬱陶しい人。
はあ？
Oh boy. The look on Misumi-kun's face turned very clearly sour. But Bess left the sharp glint in his eye unanswered, letting it pass her by without any interest. What a nasty atmosphere. I didn't want to be involved in this. I was a total embarrassment when it came to fighting, be it physically or verbally. Besides, if I caused any problems at school, it'd have an impact on my evaluations. To avoid getting caught up in it, I should probably get out of here right away.
何？もしかして岸本さんさ、俺のことバカにしてる？
別に。でも、迷惑よ。
あ、そうなんだ。そういうこと言うんだ、岸本さんって。ちょっとさ、人のいないところで二人でゆっくり話そうぜ。
Misumi-kun placed a hand on Fess's shoulder, a smile trembling with rage. Her eyebrows twitched in response.
触らないで。
そう言うなって。いいからちょっと付き合ってよ。
触らないでって言ってるの。
うっせえな。ついてこいって言ってんだよ。
バカな人。
It happened in an instant. Even though I'd seen the whole thing, I still couldn't comprehend exactly what had happened. Before I could even blink, that awesome mic stand, or maybe it was a sword, was now being held tightly in Fess's hand. I had no idea where she'd retrieved it from, but she now brandished it with incredible ease. And then... Misumi-kun's left hand was cleanly severed from his wrist. An explosion of blood erupted from the wound, and the severed hand fell to the floor. The hallway was turning crimson. I hadn't seen anything. I hadn't seen anything at all. I hadn't seen her draw her sword. I hadn't seen the trail of light it carved when it swung. I hadn't seen Misumi-kun's arm get lopped off. It all happened in the blink of an eye. And by the time I'd realized what had happened, it was already over.
手が、俺の腕が。
Misumi-kun collapsed on the spot, frantically picked up his hand, and tried desperately to reattach it to his arm. His screams echoed throughout the hallway. All the students around us screamed and ran off in a panic. As for Bess, she was still holding her sword, calmly admiring the chaos at NoAH. Then, for the second time, she looked at me. Her red tongue slowly cleaned her lips as a fierce blush dyed her cheeks, her smile stretching the color across her
気
face.
持ちいい。
So we have a delusion where Ayase murders Misumi, and we have a delusion where Misumi murders Ayase. There's some secret, unspoken, delusional rivalry between these two. No such carnage had unfolded. While I was over here drowning in my moronic delusions, Bess was murmuring something in a low voice, only to up and disappear soon after. For now, I should forget about the undersized transfer student. What really mattered was Rimi. Something needed to be done about her.
あれれ
A voice rang out from the back of the classroom. It was Rimi. What did she want?
梢ちゃん転校してきたの
CoZ-chan? Who was that? Who the hell was Rimi talking to?
なんだ崎畑、折原とは知り合いなのか？
はいそうです
Their conversation just kept on going. leaving me in the dust. Dazed and confused, I found myself unable to think straight. The transfer student wore an innocent smile.
リミさんを追いかけて私も来ちゃったの。そうなの？やることが大胆だな。
What the? Why were the two of them talking so friendly like? Tell me they were friends or something. Oh god, could the transfer student be one of the demon girl's underlings? Frozen in place, I could do nothing but listen as the two continued their carefree conversation.
リミさん、よろしくね。こちらこそ。これから楽しくなりそうだね。
I'm gonna peg you, Takumi. Oh, there it is. There it is. The Kozu Ping face. uh.
だよね。楽しみ。楽しみ。ねえ、そう思わない？
This is giving me Umineko vibes.
思うよね。西条匠。
No one came out. For some reason, I had a bad feeling about this. This wasn't normal. Maybe I'd somehow managed to stumble into something completely unreal. While still standing in front of the counter, I casually looked outside the store. Beyond the automatic glass doors was a street where not a single person was walking. Then I saw a silhouette hiding in the shadows of the apartment complex across the street.
Huh?
The form hid itself right after I saw it, but I had already seen it clearly. And the silhouette's hand was an object that resembled a long black cylinder. Was that a sniper rifle? Did that mean that the silhouette was a member of the riot police? Or maybe the SAT? That was why I couldn't see any members or any customers or employees. The police had blocked off the area. Why the hell would they do that? Having thought that, I started freaking out. I quickly looked around the store, then ducked behind the shelf. Could this be? Was there a police standoff happening right now at this very store? A criminal who had taken the store employee hostage might be barricading himself in the back. And that criminal might be the true new-gen culprit. Oh god. I sank down to the floor and cradled my head in my hands. Why had I let myself go somewhere so dangerous? Wait, no, this wasn't my fault. The police were the police. But they were blocking off the area, and they should have stopped me before I went into the convenience store. It was their fault. Was there any way I could escape? If I stayed here, they'd take me hostage too. Fortunately, I hadn't run into the culprit yet. If he was hiding in the back room, I should get out now while I still can. I was so scared, my knees felt like they were about to give out. It was extremely difficult to even stay upright. Even so, I kept myself low to the ground and slowly shuffled toward the automatic doors. It began with a shout so cliche you wouldn't even hear it on a modern-day detective shows. From outside the store, a policeman started shouting through a megaphone. It startled me so bad that I hid back behind the shelf again. An incredibly stereotypical way to call out to them. Didn't they have a negotiator or something?
30 seconds. That was practically nothing.
それまでに投降するんだ。でなければこちらも強行手段に出る。
They want to come in here by force. Were they trying to put the hostages in danger? If you did that in modern day Japan, the public and mass media would eat you alive. What the hell were the police thinking? I stayed crouched down on the floor and held my breath. My heart was pounding insanely fast. It felt like my chest was about to burst. If the police were going to force their way into the store, the whole place would become a war zone, and I'd be caught right in the crossfire whether I wanted to or not. I might get hit by a stray bullet and die right there. Please, no. I couldn't see what the criminal was doing. The entire store was silent. I was getting angry. What the hell was the criminal doing? Hurry up and surrender already. Otherwise, I'd get caught up in this too. I gingerly peeked out from behind the shelf and looked outside once more. What I saw shocked me to my core. There were several SAT snipers in plain view of me, all of which were training their sniper rifles right at the store. I frantically jerked my head back behind cover. The police were going to shoot the criminal to death. Would they be able to get away with something like that in Japan? I couldn't believe it.
あと10秒。
This couldn't be happening. Give me a break. My eyes darted around the room restlessly, until suddenly they settled on my hand. For some reason, in my hand was a knife. And the blade was soaked in red. It was blood. I was confused. How long had I had this knife in my hand? Where did I even get it? I heard someone groaning close by. An employee was lying on the floor. He was a bleary-looking guy, likely a college student. His hands were tied behind his back, and his mouth was covered with duct tape. He was looking at me. His eyes were stricken with fear. Why are you looking at me? Don't look at me like that. You're looking at me like I'm a criminal. Wait, was I the criminal? No, it wasn't me. I hadn't done anything.
時間だ。これから我々は君を射殺する。
This wasn't happening.
狙撃部隊用意。
This wasn't happening.
で。
This wasn't happening. Yeah, the police would never do that. Like, come on. Fire? Really? It wasn't like a standoff. It wasn't like a standoff was a battle straight out the Sengoku period or something. Several minutes had passed while I was having my delusion. There was still no sign of any employees. I left the classroom and started heading toward the school entrance. But partway there, I changed my mind and instead turned and headed toward the building where the first-year classrooms were located. I figured it might be a better idea to avoid the entrance I usually took. I couldn't rule out the possibility that Shogun and Yua were lying in wait to ambush me. So I opted to leave using a different route. I made my way to the first-year building via the breezeway. The final bell had already rung a little bit ago, so while the students on cleaning duty or doing club shit were still around, basically everyone who'd opted to go straight home already had. Schools always felt somewhat lonely, or even wistful after the final bell rang. No matter where I went, it always felt like that. Whether they were ancient buildings made out of wood, or newer structures like Suime. Well, not that I'd ever set foot in any wooden buildings in anything other than Eroge. Regardless, the school's interior was simmering under a thick veil of islands. kept my head low while I walked. But since there weren't any other students, I opted to keep my head. Yep. I heard something. A sound. What was that? I feel like I've heard it before. Immediately after I heard it, I saw something cross the hallway at the first year building in front of me. It was an empty wheelchair. The video of the group dive I'd watched yesterday resurfaced in my mind. A chill ran down my spine, and I froze. The wheelchair finished crossing the hallway, and then it disappeared from sight. Right after I did, I heard an insanely loud sound. Silence settled back on the campus. I took a second to catch my breath, and then I looked in the direction where the sound had come from. What was that just now? Why was there a wheelchair in the school? Not to mention one with nobody sitting in it. The crash I had heard at the end was probably the sound of the wheelchair falling down the stairs. With the noise it made, it must have taken a fair deal of damage. It wouldn't surprise me if it had been rendered practically unusable. I quickly looked around me. Rather than being calming, the silence only made my fears skyrocket. I at least knew that I couldn't see anyone moving from my current position. However, I felt a gaze. Don't look at me. Oh God, Shogun. He had come here, to this school? Why had he come here? Was it to meet with Yua? Was it to meet with me? I took a step back and nearly toppled over. However, I somehow managed to keep my balance. I was thoroughly creeped out. Was he trying to harass me? Why wasn't he showing his face? It would have been so much more bearable if he just showed himself. Nanami still wasn't answering. Please pick up. Pick up the phone already. Oh, she picked up.
ななみでしょ。返事しろよ。今どこにいるんだ。大丈夫なの。何か言ってよ。ななみ
I called out desperately to the other end of the line, but the voice that answered back.
少しは落ち着いたら
That voice was Shogun.
なんて。
I was horrified. I didn't want to accept it. I called Nanami's phone, but Shogun had answered. Completely dumbfounded, it took all I had just to say the same thing I had before.
なんで。
メールの意味がわからなかったのかな。
信じない。こんなの信じない。
Well, yeah, that's because it wasn't happening. It'd been just a delusion. A delusion featuring the worst scenario I could think of. But reality wasn't too far off. Shogun. It was most likely him who had brought them there. Him here. They were all under his mind control. The scene of Ayase falling earlier today resurfaced in my mind. In the midst of a countrywide broadcast, in front of this staggeringly large crowd, in front of countless people waiting for me to speak, I would be forced to jump. And once I did, it would be a prime example of how dead men tell no tales. The Esper boy who planned to use his gift of clairvoyance to reveal the new gen perpetrator was actually the culprit the entire time. A shocking conclusion, an unbelievable plot twist. The population would then complete their false narrative, one in which I leapt to my death as a way of repenting for my crimes. The curtain would close on New Gen after a most shocking display. My body would smash against the concrete. My limbs would warp in unnatural directions. Blood and gray matter would splatter from my crushed head. And the entire country would witness my mangled corpse. The audience wouldn't be satisfied if I didn't go to such extremes. That was what entertainment was all about. Yeah, all I had to do was die. That way, they would all be happy. And not just them, I'd be happy too. Because if I was dead, I wouldn't have to go through something so painful, so frightening, ever again. Time to die. The world would be better off without me. KYS, Takumi. Haha, go KYS. Actually kill yourself. Has the answer always been that easy? I had never felt more at ease. All my worries melted away. And so, carrying that feeling with me, I threw myself into the open air. The nightscape of Shibuya Station spun around and around. I fell to the earth. I felt the wind rushing over me. It felt nice. Hey everyone, look, I'm a bird.
ああ、死んじゃった。
ばっかじゃないのこいつ。
キモーい。
But Nanami.
じゃあはっきり言ってあげる。ナナミッチが死んだっていいじゃん。
Huh?
タッキーは自分の命よりナナミッチの命の方が大事なの？
Well, Nanami is my precious little sister. So.
でも突き詰めれば他人っしょ？死んだら悲しいけどそれだけ。タッキーに何か害が及ぶ？
No.
自分の命と他人の命とどっちが大事？死んだらさ、世界が終わるんだよ。タッキーにとっての世界が終わるの。わかる？死んだらあとは何も残らない。死後の世界なんてない。天国もない。生まれ変わることもない。ただ、タッキーっていう一人の動物の生命活動が終わって、タッキーはもう世界を観測できなくなるんさ。それって世界が終わるってことっしょ？つまりさ、タッキーが死んだらタッキーが観測してたナナミッチもどうせ消えるってことなんだよ。ナナミッチだけじゃない。リミッチもアヤセッチも、それにアタシも。みんな消える。でもナナミッチが死んだだけならタッキーは消えないで済むし、タッキーの世界も消えないで済むんさ。
I mean, she's not wrong, because you are the
ブラ
protagonist.
チューの最終回もちゃんと見られるし、来年発売予定のブラチューのゲームも私の新作フィギュアもちゃんと買える世界が残るんさ。ねえタッキー、死にたい？死にたくない？
For example, screaming, lifting a chair in the air, and attacking a Dokyun with it. It would feel great to finally give those assholes what was coming to them. I stood up in a relaxed manner. The Dokyun bastards were still smirking at me like always, unaware of the divine judgment that was about to befall them. I casually lifted up my chair. Holding it above my head, I approached the Dokyun who had first started making fun of me. My sudden actions caused the Dokyun to freeze. grin still on his face. I swung the chair down without a moment's hesitation, hitting the guy square on the head. I felt the chair collide with his skull. The Delkyun collapsed on the spot, and a puddle of blood spread out beneath him before I could even blink. For a moment, the classroom was completely silent. And then all hell broke loose. Every boy and girl screamed, looking at me with fear in their eyes, and turned and ran for their lives. The Delkyun who had collapsed at my feet was no longer moving. I slung down the chair with all my might once again. The Delkyun's body spasmed, but he didn't make a sound. He had likely fainted, or perhaps he was already dead. I started to feel a little scared. If I stopped here, who knows when he'd get up and start attacking me instead. He was a Delkyun, so he might even be carrying around a knife in his backpack. I'd already given up on life, but I didn't want the end to be painful. I had to kill him. I couldn't stop until I was sure he was dead. I struck the Delkyun's head with the chair 3 more times. Then again. Then again. And again. And again. I was still slumped down in my seat. I'd lost myself in that delusion. That felt pretty damn good. A gory splatter flick had played out inside my head. I'd love to just beat them all to death right now. Why does CoZ have a D sword? With an innocent smile on her face, CoZ looked back at me. And the gigantic snowboard-esque sword flashed, as if cutting the air itself to ribbons. I had no idea what had just happened. Before I could even react, it was all over. CoZ's small body embraced the D-sword, and clinging to that sword was a sticky substance. Blood.
Bye-bye, Takumi-san.
And in that very moment, my body had been permanently disfigured. I nearly collapsed, so I tried to step forward with my right leg to stop myself. But my leg wouldn't move. The sensation in my lower body had disappeared. I felt a blistering heat around my waist. I fell forward. I couldn't move my body. Confused as could be, using only my hands, I pushed myself slightly upward and looked toward my body. Blood was gushing out from my side. Slimy, protruding intestines glistened in the light. Pink flesh clung to exposed white bones. Does this count as foreshadowing? It's a body that had been bored out. One that couldn't be mine.
嘘でしょ
Unable to believe what I was seeing, I looked up at CoZ, staring at me with nothing but raw disdain in her eyes. CoZ took the D-sword dripping with my blood, and then, almost as if she wanted me to watch, she took her adorable tongue and slowly licked away the crimson.
She would do that. She would.
My delusion made me feel really sick, but that didn't mean that the delusion wouldn't become reality. Assuming the worst, I distanced myself a little from CoZ, preparing to bolt at any time.
そうですか。そういう態度なら私帰る。勝手にすれば。
I sensed Dreamy stand up behind me. When I turned around in surprise, she was already heading toward the door. I hurriedly called out to stop her, but I was too flustered to get the words out. Right then, Remy stopped and looked over her shoulder.
妹さんのこと心配？
どうしてそれを？
I hadn't spoken a single word to her about Nanami.
独り言ブツブツ言ってたから。ねえ、私と妹さんどっちが大事？
Oh God, the world's worst question to ever get asked for the FT dub. There were women out there who just loved asking nasty questions like that, even though there was no way you could possibly answer them. It was like they reveled in completely disregarding the other person's feelings. They only thought of themselves. I never expected to hear those words in real life. This was exactly what made 3D girls so repulsive. So, in the end, Mimi was just another one of those girls that thought like that, huh? No actual brain cells in there to think any other way. To put it bluntly, I was disappointed. I was a fool for thinking I could trust her. I'd always known 3D was no match for 2D. It was time I gave up on hanging out with Remy for good. Having lost every ounce of interest I'd had in Remy all at once, I let out an exasperated sigh. I couldn't be bothered trying to stop her from leaving. Really, I wanted her to leave as soon as possible. And yet, Remy then went on to do something completely unexpected.
答えて。私か妹さんかどっちか選んで。
Suddenly, she took out something resembling a fruit knife from her bag, and then she thrusted it toward her own wrist. I was completely dumbfounded. I started trembling in terror.
私を選んで。私だけを見て。
Was she threatening me? Had this been her true nature all along? Could it be that she'd been some fucking insane mental case the entire time?
お願い。私を見てよ。
君は僕だけを見てくれてないじゃないか。
That was a good beat.
In the heat of the moment, I give a serious, non-shitpost response, even though everyone knew that you shouldn't go along with the stuff psychopaths said, especially if it was a threat. I'd regretted it the moment it came out of my mouth, but it was too late.
見てるよ。
Mimi's voice was ice cold. Her eyes were bloodshot. She curved her lips into a cruel smile.
だから邪魔者は排除するの。あなたの妹をさらったのも私だし。
You're kidding.
タクに選んでもらうためなら私こんなことだってするよ。
And then Remy pressed the knife against her wrist and slowly began to draw it to the right.
やめろ。
They couldn't bother to change the lighting.
やめろって何が？
When I came back to my senses, I was looking at my monitor, and I'd heard Remy's inquisitive voice come from behind me. I hurriedly turned around, only to see her still sitting on the sofa. She was holding a manga in her hand and was giving me a puzzled look.
タク顔色悪いけどどうかしたの？
うん。
But had that all been a delusion? God, that was so fucked up.
メールだよボケナス。
どこ行ったんだ？
さあ。
The window was open. Wind blew against the white curtains, sending them fluttering in the breeze. I absent-mindedly approached the window, not because I planned to look at anything in particular, nor because I intended to close the window. It was an action without intention. I just started moving. I stood right before the window, when I went to look up at the sky, a figure flashed by. Without so much as a sound, someone fell from above. And for a split second, I made eye contact with them. The figure quickly vanished, and right after they did, a fierce crash reverberated from below.
なんだ
I sank to the floor. My body started trembling all over. I had just fallen. But I already knew the answer to that question. Kishimoto Ayase. She had fallen from above and plummeted to the ground. She would almost certainly be there if I looked down. Sprawled out on the ground, covered in blood, green matter scattered everywhere. Her eyes had met the very instant before she died. The last person Ayase had seen had been me. The last person to see Ayase alive had been me. Closer to a groan than anything, a scream gushed forth from my mouth. Right at that moment, my mind broke.
あなたはもうずっとこの病院に入院してたんでしょって。
えどういう意味だそれ。
あのね、岸本さんは退院なんてしてなかったの。
With a bit of pride in her voice, Mimi began to reveal some pretty shocking information about Ayase.
たまにしか学校に来なかったのもこの病院から無断で通ってたから。ライブだってそう。そしてニュージェネ事件は岸本さんが生み出した妄想を彼女自身の手で実行したものだったの。ファンタズムの歌詞の通りに事件を起こしたのよ。それによって注目を浴びるために。それが私の推理したニュージェネ事件の真相。さっき思い切って岸本さん本人にぶつけてみたんだ。そしたら叩かれちゃった。
That wasn't something to over. Anyone would get upset at being treated as a murderer without proof. And again, when I treated Rimi like a murderer, she hadn't gone all pissy.
でも私の推理は間違ってないはず。タク、気をつけてね。岸本さんは異常だよ。
I couldn't believe what I was hearing. It had come from Rimi of all people. I wondered if I'd misheard her.
私は正常よ。
え
A clear voice echoed throughout the room. When I looked over to find the source of it, I saw Ayase standing at the entrance to the hospital ward, D-sword in hand.
すべては大いなる意志の導き。
With that shriek, she charged at us with her D-sword.
おい逃げようぜ。
タク、どうしよう。
どうしようって。
グラジオールに栄光あれ。
Ayase had clearly gone off the rails. She came closer and closer. This was bad. We had to run. If we didn't, we were dead. I was in too much of a hurry, so I ended up tripping over myself. I fell to the floor so hard it was almost comical.
諦めろリミ。
Abandoning me, Rimi and Mismi-kun ran away. My arm reached for them as their backs got smaller and smaller.
待って、置いていかないで。
死ねー。
When I turned around, I saw Ayase's figure mid-swing as she brought her D-sword down on top of me.
おーいタク、何ぼーっとしてんだ。行くぞ。
Mismi-kun was calling for me. Rimi also waved at me from behind him. Blinking dazedly, I examined my surroundings. Ayase was nowhere in sight. I wasn't injured. I hadn't been split in two.
妄想か。
And here I thought I was gonna die. That scary version of Ayase could happily stay in my delusions, thank you very much.
タク、早く来いって。
I brought my heavy legs one step forward. This place free of traffic lights, I staggered onto the road. I had a feeling that salvation awaited me there. A glaring brightness from a pair of headlights, the deafening, discordant noise of a car horn, the unnerving sound of squealing tires. Come on, kill me. Kill this fake me, this unsightly monster. With a strong impact at my waist, my body was taken away. I rolled across the hood. A sharp pain. Something hard crashed into the temporal region of my head. My vision went black. The sound of bones shattering rang throughout my skull. I was unable to breathe. It felt as though I was underwater. I was tossed up into the air, and then I fell back down. My limbs writhed in pain. It felt as if the pain was burning away my nerves like fuses. I can finally die. When I opened my eyes, I was standing on the sidewalk. The road that I'd been run over on was right in front of me.
なんで。どうして僕を死なせてくれないんだ。
だったら消えればいいっしょ。
消えてやんよ。消えてやる。
I opened the storage box under my bed. If I remembered correctly, there should have been a knife around there. Thinking back on it now, it was just a bunch of chuny nonsense. There was a time when I thought walking around with a knife in my pocket was cool.
By the way, sorry for not commenting on the, sorry for not commenting on the last delusion, Annie. It was just kind of... Hard to read, I guess. I'm fine, I just... Yeah. Yeah. There was a time I thought walking around with a knife in my pocket was cool. But I'd stopped after police supervision got a lot tighter. And just as I thought, among my keychains, trading cards, and scratch paper was my pocket knife. I held the blade in my hand. It shone eerily as it reflected the light. It was a bit rusty, given it had been left there for about a year. But this amount of rust didn't matter much if I was just slitting my wrists. I propped the knife on my left wrist, the same hand holding Seraton. The blade was cold as ice, a chill that made me think of death. I closed my eyes and took 3 deep breaths. All that was left now was to keep a firm grip on the knife and drive it to the side. I just had to apply a bit of pressure with my right hand. My fake heart pounded and pounded. My pulse skyrocketed, even though I was just a fake. I felt as if ice was being poured into the center of my head. The trembling refused to stop. It only got worse and worse with each passing second, even though I was just a fake. Slit it. Slit your wrist. If you do so, you can disappear. I raised my voice in an attempt to muster up the will to die. Slide, 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 slide it. My trembling had gone so bad, I dropped the Seraton figure I was holding. The knife was still pressed against my wrist. The hand holding it was shaking like crazy. Throwing away the knife, I leaned back in my chair and cradled my head in my hands. How pathetic. I didn't even have the courage to kill myself. No reason to live, yet unable to even die. I couldn't even put an end to my life. The life of a monster. I was a worthless piece of shit who was beyond saving. It wasn't that I wanted to live. I was just scared of dying. Of disappearing for good. Even though I was just a fake.
頼むよ。誰かこんな僕を殺してくれ。
そんなタッキーも可愛いよ。
Seraton spoke cheerfully, and I was hit with a strong sense of disgust toward myself who had made her do so, yeah. Welp. I don't recognize the voice. I don't recognize the face in that achievement in the slightest. I think it's Hatano. Haven't seen him make that face before. Maybe it's from the Senna route or something. Haven't seen it yet, so it's possible. Anyway, without a shadow of a doubt, the one standing before me was Nanami. But for some reason, despite the fact that it wasn't raining, she was drenched from head to toe. One by one, drops of water continuously fell from the hems of her uniform. Her head hung low, and with her face hidden by her bangs, I couldn't see her expression. Ugh, maggots. She didn't speak a word, as if her previous anger she'd been showing had been completely fake. Suddenly,
Nanami sluggishly extended her right arm toward me. When I looked, there was no hand to be seen. Her sleeve was covering it, and I couldn't see it very well, but I knew for a fact she had no hand. In an uncharacteristically low voice for her, she spoke. Slowly, Nanami raised her head. Her skin was desiccated and deathly pale, and her lips were a deep purple. Her eye sockets were empty. There were no eyeballs within them, only a deep black. And from within one of those cavities, a single maggot came crawling out. It was a corpse, Nanami's corpse, moving and talking. Nanami's left hand, which was giving off a rotten stench, grabbed me by the neck. It was cold enough to make me shiver. Her grip was not normal. It was too strong to be a girl's, and even a guy's for that matter. Very few men could be so strong. I felt as if my neck was breaking apart. I couldn't breathe. I coughed and coughed. The grip she had on my neck increased in pressure, growing tighter and tighter. I was gonna die. I flailed my arms wildly, but I gave up my struggle soon after. If you're gonna kill me, then go ahead. If I was to be killed by Nanami's ghost, then that would put me at ease somewhat. It was my fault that she'd ended up like that. After all, it was only fair for her to kill me. It made perfect sense. So please, hurry. I closed my eyes and adjusted my body to her. Hurry up, not me. Break the bones in my neck. Nanami's corpse had vanished in an instant. Despite the fact that I should have been standing next to the door, I was now sitting on the sofa, Seraton in hand. Nanami stood in the middle of the room, and she was speaking normally. There was a bandage around her right wrist, but her hand was still there. Her skin looked normal, and she wasn't drenched at all. Her eyes were where they should have been too. Realizing I had just seen a delusion, I became disappointed. Why did it have to be a delusion? Why couldn't that be reality?
You want zombie Nanami, my guy?
お兄、もしかしてお腹空いてる？
Nursing my heavy sigh, Nanami leaned forward to
だ
inspect
か
my
らさっき
face.
から全然元気ない。
Once again, wrong achievement time.
Everyone was focused on me. I braced myself for it to happen again. Being verbally abused, laughed at, humiliated.
Actually, maybe it's just because I'm playing the Committee of Zero version, and if I recall correctly, it said that the official release is censored in some areas. So maybe it's just possible that there's like a delusion option that's been removed or something from the base game. Anyways,
I braced myself for it to happen again. Being verbally abused, laughed at, humiliated. My legs froze as I recalled the trauma from back then. It was then that someone ran into me. Actually, it might have been more accurate to say that they practically hurled themselves at me. Having been caught by surprise, I lost my balance. Still somehow managed to keep my feet on the ground. Turning around, I was greeted by a businessman in his 20s. I'd never seen him before.
お、すっげえ。こんな感触なんだ。
He was staring at his hands and mumbling words to himself that I couldn't make sense of. Just as I was wondering if what he'd done counted as targeted harassment. I felt a sudden heat in my lower back. And then I realized there was something foreign in my body. As if something was caught in my lower back. It ached. It hurt. It burned like hell. I frantically checked my lower back, my face contorting from the pain. In doing so, I found something that looked like the handle of a knife protruding from my back. Wait, it wasn't simply protruding from my back. No, the knife was lodged in me. The pain grew sharper with each passing second. Before I knew it, my pants were soaked. I was shocked to realize it was all my blood.
私ね
In front of me, a girl around college age started to run toward me. She was holding a kitchen knife in her hand and had a wide grin on her face, with no time to avoid it. The knife was stabbed deep into my stomach.
すっごい私刺しちゃった
The girl, now celebrating, immediately stepped away from me. It was then that I realized I was surrounded by a crowd full of people. From students to workers, from young men to middle-aged women. Anyone you could think of, they were there, holding knives in their hands. Each and every one stared at me with the same grin on their faces. And on all four jumbotrons, the same flashy caption bounced around the screen. The long-awaited offline meet. Let's all stab the fake-ass sperm Nishijo Takumi to death begins. Right in front of me was an orderly line to wait for something, one that everyone was starting to get in. They were all waiting in line to stab me. This time, it was a Gongoro high school girl. She stabbed me in the side with her knife. I was having a hard time even registering what was going on. I hadn't even had the chance to feel the pain yet. It still took every ounce of strength I had to keep standing.
手に血がついたマジ最悪なんだけど
It was then that an older businessman pushed her aside and quickly moved toward me with a firm grip on his kitchen knife.
ストレス解消だ俺
That man then pulled out the knife that I'd just been stabbed with and stabbed me with it again.
こりゃいい
There was already one knife in my back and three in my stomach. All four blades protruded from my body. It was almost comical. But it wasn't over yet. The stabbing line had grown longer and longer. Everyone was waiting maniacally for their chance to stab me, wondering, is it my turn yet? Is it my turn yet? Having reached my limit, I was about to collapse. Right as I was about to fall, the first man that had stabbed me came up from behind me, wrapped his arms underneath mine, and helped me up.
みんな並んで待ってるんだから倒れちゃダメだろ
The moment he said that, I felt yet another intense pain in my back. A cold, hard blade gouged out my skin and bored out my flesh. I was about to tell them to stop, but I held my tongue at the last second. In a manner of speaking, this was what I wished for. I wanted to be killed, didn't I? So, didn't this mean everything was turning out fine? So don't just tell them to stop, you dumbass. Held up by the man, unable to even collapse. I was stabbed. In my chest, in my stomach, in my back, in my arms, in my thighs, in my fingernails. Before I knew it, I was screaming. I thought I'd be able to hold it back since this was what I wanted, but it hurt so much that I just couldn't bear it. I cried out the ugliest cries. How many blades had I been stabbed with by now? It was a number too big to count. Having been stabbed so many times, the pain made it impossible for me to move my body anymore. And yet, neither my senses nor my consciousness would dull the pain, not even slightly. In fact, they did the exact opposite. They made it clearer and clearer with every passing second.
He's trying his best to imitate Donald Duck.
So many times would it take? Just let me die already. It hurts so much. Why couldn't I just die?
そんなの決まってるっしょ。
Seda's voice rang within my mind.
妄想だからだよ。
Well, that was needlessly long and pointless.
Breathing a sigh of relief, I opened my eyes, but the pain and the feeling of foreign objects inside me were gone right in front of me. I only died at 3 steps. Staring me all that torture. Yeah. Yep.
Okay, so assuming that there isn't some random scene that's gonna appear now that I've seen all the delusions, yep, I'm gonna call it a night. Good night, and I'll play the next routes tomorrow. I am so tired. So tired. If you managed to stick through this entire video, I applaud you. Your patience is even greater than mine. Bye.